It was supposed to be just another loud, messy Halloween night in the Bronx. The kind where the air smells like cheap fireworks, fried food, and trouble. Kids in dollar store masks ran between parked cars, their laughter echoing off the brick buildings. Someone had rigged up a giant fake spider on a fire escape, and another window glowed orange with a plastic pumpkin that flickered in the wind. Carl Jackson didn't care much for Halloween. He was 21, a quiet, hard-working guy who lived with his mother on Creston Avenue. He'd been saving up to buy a used car, nothing fancy, just something that could take him to his job at a printing shop without depending on the subway. That night, he wasn't out to party. He was just out with his cousin, Andre, giving him a ride back home after they'd picked up some snacks. The streets were crowded with teenagers, some in masks, some without, yelling, laughing, and occasionally throwing eggs. In the Bronx, that was a Halloween tradition. You dodged the eggs or you got splattered. No one took it too seriously. But this year, it would be different. Carl's car rolled up to East 180th Street, headlights cutting through the chaos. He had one hand on the wheel, the other tapping the steering column, humming along with the radio. The news had said something about scattered vandalism across the city, but Carl wasn't worried. It was Halloween. That was just noise. Then thud. Something smacked the windshield. A wet, sliding sound. Carl flinched, slamming the brakes. Yellow yolk streaked down the glass, blurring the streetlights into smudges of gold. "Ah, come on, man," Andre groaned from the passenger seat. "They got us good." Carl exhaled, gripping the steering wheel tighter. He'd been calm all night, but something about that sound, the splat of an egg hitting his car, got under his skin. He looked up through the smeared windshield and saw three figures standing at the corner, half lit by a street lamp. One wore a clown mask, the other a hoodie with the hood pulled low, and the third just stared. "Just kids," Andre muttered. "Forget it. Let's go." But Carl didn't move. He could feel the heat rise in his chest. It wasn't just anger, it was that Bronx instinct. The one that says don't let anyone disrespect you. He rolled down his window, leaned halfway out, and shouted, "Hey, you think that's funny?" The boys didn't answer. The clown just tilted his head, slow, almost mocking. Then one of them started walking toward the car. Andre reached over, gripping Carl's arm. "Bro, leave it. Seriously. It's not worth it." But Carl was staring ahead, his pulse in his throat. The boy approaching them stopped just short of the headlights, his mask glowing white. He raised one hand and, without a word, flipped Carl off. Carl slammed the gas. The car jerked forward, swerving past them. He didn't hit anyone, but he made his point. In the rearview mirror, Andre saw the kids scatter, disappearing into the maze of parked cars and shadows. For a few moments, the car was silent except for the radio. Carl's jaw was tight, eyes straight ahead. Andre laughed nervously. "You showed them, man. Forget those punks." But Carl didn't answer. Somewhere deep inside, something felt wrong. The kind of wrong that crawls under your skin and sits there. He didn't know it yet, but one of those masked boys would be waiting for him later that night. And the next time Carl stopped his car, it wouldn't just be for an egg. The night grew heavier as Carl and Andre drove through the Bronx, the noise fading behind them. The laughter, the popping fireworks, the echoing shouts, all slipping away into the distance. Halloween had a strange way of making the city feel alive and dead at the same time. Every block flickered with fake cobwebs, plastic skeletons, and porch lights that buzzed like flies. Carl's hands stayed tight on the wheel. The egg streaks were still drying across the glass, and each time the wipers dragged across, they left ghostly smears. "You good, bro?" Andre asked. "You look like you're ready to fight someone." Carl forced a small laugh. "Nah, just pissed they got my car. I just washed this thing." But that wasn't the truth. There was something deeper, an unease that stuck to him, heavy as smoke. The way that masked kid had looked at him, it hadn't felt like some random prank. It was too calm, too focused, like he wanted Carl to remember his face, even though it was hidden behind rubber and paint. The streetlights flickered as they turned onto Creston Avenue. Trash rustled in the gutter. Somewhere nearby, a group of kids screamed, playful, high-pitched, the sound of fake terror. But layered beneath it, Carl swore he heard something else. A dull pop. Maybe a firecracker. Maybe not. They pulled up to Andre's building, a crumbling brownstone wedged between two bodegas. Carl parked by the curb, leaving the engine running. "You want to crash here?" Andre asked, half joking. "You're looking jumpy." Carl shook his head. "Nah, I'm good. I'll head home, get some sleep. Gotta work early." Andre leaned back into the car, giving him a quick fist bump. "Aight, Drive safe, yeah? It's Halloween, don't stop for nobody. Carl smirked. I won't. But as Andre disappeared up the steps, Carl sat there a moment longer, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. His eyes looked different, darker somehow, like he was already anticipating something bad. He reached for the radio, turning it up just to fill the silence. A late-night DJ's voice crackled through the speakers. And remember, folks, stay safe out there tonight. NYPD's reporting a few scuffles and vandalism around the Bronx, so maybe skip the tricks and keep the treats indoors. Carl shifted into drive. The streets were thinner now, no kids, no laughter. Just the hum of streetlights and the occasional shadow slipping between cars. He rolled down the window, letting the cold air wash over him. He was almost home when he saw it. A flash of color, red, blue, and yellow, darting from an alley. It was the clown. Same mask. Same tilted head. Standing by the sidewalk under the weak glow of a flickering lamp. Carl's heart kicked hard against his ribs. For a second, he thought about speeding up, but he didn't. He slowed down instead, his headlights catching the white rubber grin of the mask. The clown didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared. Carl's pulse thundered in his ears. He could have sworn the clown's hands were empty, but the way his arm hung at his side, tense, heavy, it looked like he was holding something. Carl's fingers brushed the lock on his car door. He rolled up the window, heart pounding faster. Then the clown lifted one hand and pointed. Right at Carl. No words. No sound. Just that slow, deliberate gesture that said everything. Carl slammed the accelerator, tires screeching as he tore down the street. The car fishtailed once before straightening out. His breathing was ragged now, a sound that filled the car louder than the radio. He didn't look back. Not until he hit the corner, where the streetlight caught the rearview mirror just right. The clown was gone. Or maybe he'd stepped off the curb and was walking toward the direction Carl had gone. The moment Tom's foot crossed the threshold, a wave of cold air rushed out, like the house had been holding its breath for decades. The floor groaned under his weight, the boards soft and swollen from years of rot. His flashlight beam wavered, cutting through dust that shimmered like tiny ghosts. Jesus, he whispered as the stench of mildew and something older, something sweet and rotten hit him. He pulled his hoodie sleeve over his nose and moved forward. Behind him, the night outside seemed to vanish. The world beyond the open door fell away, and he didn't notice when the wind pushed it closed. Click. The sound made him turn. The door now shut tight, the handle unmoving. He tested it once. Then again. It didn't budge. He chuckled nervously. Old hinges, he muttered, trying to convince himself. But something about the air changed. It felt thicker, like the house was exhaling now around him. Tom aimed his flashlight down the main hallway. Peeling wallpaper revealed brown stains beneath. The family portraits hung crooked on the walls, the eyes faded and water-damaged, but still watching. Each face had been slashed with something sharp, right through the eyes. The floor creaked again. But this time not under his foot. He froze. The beam darted toward the sound. A door at the end of the hall had opened just a few inches. Behind it, darkness so dense it swallowed the light. Tom swallowed hard. Probably the wind, he whispered, though his voice trembled. He stepped forward, his sneakers leaving faint prints in the dust. The closer he got, the colder it became. His breath fogged the air. The house was bigger than it looked from the outside. The ceiling sagged low, beams of ancient wood bowed under invisible weight. As he neared the half-open door, a sound broke the silence, soft, rhythmic. Like something brushing against fabric. A rocking chair. He peeked in. A nursery. The flashlight caught faded pink wallpaper with yellow stars. A crib half-collapsed in the corner. A small wooden rocking chair creaked gently back and forth though no wind blew. Tom's mouth went dry. He approached, his hand trembling as he reached for the chair. The second his fingers brushed the worn wood, it stopped. Dead still. Then, from the crib, a whisper. Tommy! He jumped back, hitting the wall. His light swung wildly. The room was empty. Completely empty. He backed out of the room, breathing hard, nearly tripping over the warped boards. You're hearing things. Just an old house, he told himself, though his voice cracked. The flashlight flickered once. Twice. Then it went out. Darkness swallowed him whole. And in that suffocating black, something small giggled. A child's giggle, light and playful, echoing from the hall behind him. Tom smacked the flashlight, desperate for it to turn back on. The beam sputtered and flared weakly, revealing only fragments of the hallway, the torn wallpaper, the warped ceiling, and that half-open door behind him, still breathing out cold. He He stepped backward slowly, eyes scanning for an exit. Okay, he muttered under his breath, voice trembling. Front door. Out. Done. But as he turned, a new sound bled through the silence. CRK, CHHH, CRK. Static. It came from the living room. A soft, intermittent crackle, like an old radio trying to find a station. Against his better judgment, Tom followed the noise. The sound grew louder, sharper, until he found the source, a baby monitor sitting on a dust-covered coffee table. It shouldn't have worked. The cord trailed into nothing, the plug torn off years ago. Yet the small green light on its side pulsed faintly. Tommy. He froze. His name again, drawn out in a whisper that distorted with static. Come play. Tom stepped back, shaking his head. No. Nope. This is not happening. He turned toward the door, but the room around him had changed. The layout was wrong. The furniture had shifted, chairs angled toward him, a couch now pressed tight against the entryway like a barricade. The monitor hissed louder. Why'd you leave me, Tommy? I don't even know you, he shouted, but his voice cracked like a child's. Then laughter. The same giggle from the nursery, clearer this time. It wasn't coming from the monitor anymore. It was coming from behind him. He spun around. A small figure stood at the edge of the room. A girl, no more than 6 years old, wearing a white nightgown stained with something dark. Her face was turned away, her long hair matted and wet. Hey, Tom said weakly. You okay? The girl turned her head slightly, and the air seemed to twist around her. Her eyes were gone, nothing but deep, empty sockets that wept black tears. Tom stumbled backward. No, no, no. The monitor screamed. A burst of static and a woman's shrill voice cried, Don't let her out. The girl lunged forward. Tom fell to the floor, scrambling toward the couch, kicking it aside. He bolted for the hallway, flashlight bouncing wildly, breath coming in panicked gasps. Behind him, the laughter shifted, lower now, distorted, echoing like it came from inside the walls. He slammed into the front door. It didn't move. The lock rattled, but something on the other side was holding it shut. Help! Someone help! He screamed, pounding the wood. Then the baby monitor, still in the living room, whispered one last word, slow, deliberate, right into his ear though it sat 20 feet away. Stay. The word echoed through the house, stay. Tom's breath fogged in the air. He twisted the doorknob again, both hands shaking, forcing the metal until his skin went white. Nothing. The lock clicked but wouldn't turn. The flashlight flickered once more and died completely. The hallway plunged into darkness. Okay, he muttered, voice cracking. Okay, you can figure this out. Just find a window. You're not staying here. No way. He slid his phone from his pocket, no signal. But the screen cast a faint glow, enough to see his own reflection in the black glass door panel. Only, it wasn't quite his reflection. The silhouette in the glass stood closer than he did. A step closer, head tilted, smiling faintly. Tom stumbled back so fast he hit the wall. The reflection didn't move. It stayed there, face still pressed to the other side, grinning. He turned away, forcing himself down the corridor. His shoes stuck slightly to the floorboards, which were tacky, as if something wet had been spilled there long ago. Then he saw it, a narrow door beside the staircase, its wood swollen with age. The handle was cold, almost slimy. A basement. He hated basements. Still, when the only other direction was the laughing dark behind him, a basement seemed almost welcoming. The hinges wailed as he pulled it open. A gust of air rushed out, cold, damp, smelling faintly of iron and rot. He turned on his phone's light again and descended. The wooden steps groaned under his weight, each one slower than the last. Halfway down, the door above creaked and closed on its own, sealing him in. Of course it did, Tom whispered bitterly. The basement stretched farther than he expected. Low ceiling, stone walls slick with moisture, shelves of decayed paint cans and rusted tools. And in the far corner, something pale caught his light, fabric hanging like a curtain. He walked closer. It wasn't fabric. It was a sheet nailed to the wall. Behind it, something large shifted slightly. Hello, he called, instantly regretting it. No response. He reached out and pulled the sheet down. Behind it was a mural, painted crudely in dark red, years ago. It showed a man, a woman, and a little girl standing before a house. Their faces were smeared, the paint dripping like tears. Beneath them, in crooked lettering, "She never left." Tom stepped back, horrified. His light trembled over the words. Then the air changed. It was subtle, like pressure building before a storm. The basement lights, long dead, buzzed faintly. And then footsteps. soft, bare feet padding across the floor behind him. Tom turned his light toward the stairs. A pair of small feet stood at the top, pale, dirty, toes curled against the wood. He swallowed hard. Please don't. The child's voice came from the dark above. Calm. Flat. You woke her up. Tom's heart lurched. Who? The mother. Then the lights exploded, one single overhead bulb flickering to life for half a second, and in that flash, Tom saw the full basement reflected in a shard of broken mirror. Behind him a woman stood, her head tilted unnaturally, hair plastered to her face, a rope still looped around her neck. Her eyes bulged wide, unblinking, and her lips were split open in a grotesque smile. When the bulb burst, darkness swallowed everything, and in the dark she whispered from right behind his ear, "Welcome home." The next sound Tom heard wasn't a scream, it was breathing. Slow, wet, and far too close. He froze, afraid to even exhale. The air in the basement had thickened into something heavy, syrupy. He could feel it moving past his skin. His hand trembled as he raised his phone light again. The screen flickered, battery at 2%. It cast only a weak circle of white on the damp wall. No woman. No child. Nothing. Just the empty basement. Tom stumbled backward, swallowing panic. The mural still glared at him from the far wall, dripping with red. He stared at it closer now, realizing that what he had thought was old paint wasn't paint at all. It was too dark, too clotted. He didn't want to finish the thought. He backed into a table. Something metal clattered to the floor, a photo frame. He picked it up carefully. Behind the cracked glass was an image of the same house, maybe 50 years earlier. A family of 3 stood on the porch, a man in suspenders, a woman with a long braid, and a little girl holding a rag doll. Their smiles looked forced. The girl's eyes were blurred, as if she had moved mid-photo. Then Tom noticed something scratched into the frame with what looked like a knife tip. 4 letters. Jagged, desperate. Tom. He almost dropped it. His throat tightened. His mind tried to explain it. Coincidence, maybe another Tom who lived here before. But deep down, something in him screamed that it wasn't coincidence at all. He turned toward the stairs, ready to bolt. But the steps looked longer now, as though the basement had stretched while he wasn't looking. And at the top of the staircase, something dangled. A noose. Old, frayed, swaying gently in air that shouldn't have been moving. Tom's breath came in shallow bursts. He pressed himself against the wall, every instinct screaming to climb those stairs anyway. But his phone light shifted over the far corner again, and revealed a figure standing motionless there. It was the little girl. Her hair was stringy, soaked in something dark. Her head was bent, and in her hand she clutched the same rag doll from the photo. The doll's face was torn open. Tom whispered, "I just want to leave." The girl raised her head. Her eyes were completely black. When she spoke, her voice was layered, like more than one voice was speaking through her. "You already did." Tom's pulse thundered in his ears. "What do you mean?" She stepped forward. Each footstep echoed like it was inside his skull. "You left us. You watched." "I don't know what you're talking about," he shouted, stepping back. But then the mural on the wall began to change. The paint moved, swirling, reforming into shapes, faces, screaming mouths. And there, between the parents' twisted images, appeared a 4th figure. A boy, slightly older than the girl. His name carved beneath him in dripping red, Tom. Tom's hand went cold. His chest tightened as flashes struck his memory, images that weren't his but felt real. A shouting match, a slammed door, running through the woods, away from the house. A girl's voice crying his name. Then silence. The girl's whisper came again, right beside him now. "You left us here, all alone." Tom turned, and she was inches from his face. Her breath was icy, smelling faintly of decay. He stumbled back into the table again. His phone slipped from his hand, screen cracking as it hit the floor. The light flickered, spinning wildly across the basement until it landed on the far wall, where a message had appeared that hadn't been there before. In dripping red letters. "Welcome back, brother." The light died completely, and from the dark he heard a man's voice this time, low, calm, final. "It's time to finish what you started." When Tom opened his eyes again, there was light, but it wasn't coming from his phone. It was daylight, soft, gray, and cold. He was no longer in the basement. He was standing in the middle of the overgrown backyard, mist curling through the skeletal remains of weeds. His head throbbed as if someone had struck him. The house loomed behind him, its windows blank and black like open eyes. Tom didn't remember getting out. He didn't remember walking, climbing the stairs, or breathing. All he knew was that the cold morning air stung his lungs, and something deep inside him whispered, "You've been here before." A crow screamed from the treeline. The sound jolted through him. Then he saw it, half buried in the wet earth, just a few feet away. A rusted tricycle. Its red paint faded to brown. Beside it, a small mound of stones carefully stacked, almost like a grave marker. He crouched and brushed his hand over the stones. Beneath them, something was carved into a flat piece of wood, worn with time. He leaned closer, heart hammering. For Ellie. His mind went blank for a moment. The name hit him with a strange, nauseating familiarity. Ellie. The little girl. Her voice still echoed in his skull. "You left us here." Tom's throat tightened. He could almost hear the faint sound of a laugh, small and innocent, carried on the wind. It wasn't just any laugh. It was the laugh of a sister. He stumbled backward. His shoe caught on something in the soil, and when he looked down, he saw the handle of a shovel protruding from the dirt. Its metal edge was dark, with rot. His hands trembled as he reached for it, and the instant his fingers brushed the handle, the world around him shifted. The mist thickened. The trees bled back into the past. And suddenly, he wasn't standing in the backyard anymore. He was watching it. A boy, maybe 15, was digging furiously under the pale moonlight. His face was streaked with tears, his hands raw. Behind him, a small, motionless body lay in the grass. The girl, Ellie, her head turned toward the sky, her eyes open and glassy. Tom's stomach twisted. No, that's not me." The boy's sobs filled the night. He dropped the shovel, falling to his knees, whispering something Tom couldn't quite hear. Then another voice, a man's, barked from the house. "What have you done, boy?" The boy Tom ran. Straight into the woods, disappearing into darkness. The scene flickered and dissolved. The mist cleared, and Tom was alone again. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. No, that's not real. That can't be real. But deep down, something inside him broke. A memory he had buried so deeply it had become legend. He hadn't found the house tonight. He had returned to it. And the woman's scream he'd heard in the basement wasn't from a ghost. It was his mother's, echoing from the night his world ended. Tom's breath came in short, desperate bursts. He turned toward the house, shaking. The front door was open now, swinging gently in the morning wind. It almost seemed to breathe in and out, in and out. He wanted to run, but the door whispered his name. "Tom!" He staggered forward, every step feeling heavier than the last. He reached the threshold and froze. Inside, the hallway was no longer empty. A woman stood there, wearing a long white nightgown, her hair tangled, her face pale and streaked with something dark. Her eyes shimmered with sadness instead of hate. "Mom!" Tom whispered. She didn't move, didn't blink, just raised her trembling hand and pointed behind him. Tom turned. Standing at the edge of the yard was the little girl, Ellie, her black eyes now soft and human again. She gave him a faint smile and mouthed something he couldn't hear. Then she slowly faded, dissolving into mist until there was nothing left but the sound of the wind through the grass. When Tom turned back to the doorway, his mother was gone. Only the house remained, silent, waiting, like a mouth that had swallowed every sound. Tom stood there for a long time before stepping back into the yard. And in that moment, as the clouds began to shift above him, he realized he'd never truly left this place. Not in his mind, not in his memory, because sometimes the real ghosts aren't the ones haunting the house. They're the ones still trapped inside you. Tom stood at the edge of the yard for what felt like hours. The morning light was creeping higher, turning the fog into gold, but it didn't bring warmth. The house still loomed before him like a sleeping beast, the doorway a mouth that invited him in. His legs moved before his mind could stop them. Each step toward the door made the air colder, heavier. The world seemed to narrow, no birds, no wind, just the faint creak of the wood beneath his shoes. When he stepped inside, the light changed. The sunlight behind him dimmed as though the house swallowed it whole. The smell of mildew and old iron filled his nose, and that faint, awful hum began again, the one from the basement. Only now it was louder. Tom's hand grazed the wall. It pulsed faintly under his fingers, like the heartbeat of something alive. He wanted to run, but the air itself seemed to pull him forward, guiding him down the hall. That's when he noticed it. At the far end of the corridor, where the wallpaper had peeled away into darkness, there was a door. He was sure that door hadn't been there before. It was small, crooked, and half covered by hanging wallpaper. The handle was blackened with age, and carved faintly into the wood were letters. They looked like they had been scratched by a child. Yellalai. Tom froze. His pulse kicked into overdrive. The sound of that humming deepened into a low vibration that he could feel in his chest. He whispered to the dark, "Ellie?" A faint knock came from behind the door. Once, then twice, then 3 times. Tom's throat tightened. "Ellie, it's me. I'm sorry." He reached for the handle, and the instant his fingers touched it, a chill ran up his arm so sharp it made him gasp. The house seemed to lean in, its walls creaking like a breath being held. He turned the handle. The door swung open into blackness. No room, no basement steps, just an endless, silent dark. A wind rushed out, carrying with it a smell he knew too well: dirt, rot, and something sweet, like old flowers. Then, from within the dark, a voice whispered. Soft, small, childlike. "Do you remember what you did?" Tom stepped back, shaking his head. "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." The voice interrupted, still calm, almost tender. "You left me in the woods. You said you'd be right back." Tom's knees went weak. His vision blurred. Memory surged through him like water breaking a dam. That night, the flashlight, the laughter, Ellie running through the trees, pretending to be scared. And then the scream. The fall. She hadn't been murdered. She'd fallen. He'd tried to carry her home, but she hadn't moved. His mother's voice had been shouting in the distance, her flashlight cutting through the trees, and in his panic, in his fear of being blamed, he had buried her. He had buried his sister. Tom fell to his knees, sobbing. "I was just a kid. I didn't know what to do." The darkness beyond the door stirred. Shapes moved, small hands, a faint outline of a girl in a tattered dress. But she wasn't angry anymore. Her eyes were wide, sad, almost forgiving. "You never left me," she whispered. "You just forgot." The blackness started to pull at him, like wind from another world. His hair whipped across his face, his fingers clutching at the floorboards as the air roared. He wanted to close the door, but his body wouldn't move. Then he saw her hand, Ellie's, reach out of the dark. Pale, trembling, covered in soil. Tom reached back. When their fingers touched, everything stopped. The wind, the sound, even his heartbeat. For a moment there was nothing but stillness, and then a light, dim but steady, bloomed inside the doorway. He saw them both now, 2 children playing in the woods, laughing, running, alive. The memory played like a home video inside his mind, clean and untouched by guilt. And when he blinked, the door was gone. The hallway was empty again. Tom stood slowly, breath shaking. The humming had stopped. The house was quiet, utterly still. He didn't know if he'd made peace or gone mad, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight in his chest. He walked toward the front door, each step lighter than the last. The morning had turned to noon, the sky pale and empty. But just as he crossed the threshold, a whisper followed him out. "Don't forget me again." He stopped, turned, but there was only the wind. The house stood silent, its windows catching the light. Tom stepped back onto the road. The asphalt shimmered in the distance, leading away from the place he'd been running from his whole life. He didn't look back. Not this time. Tom walked down the cracked asphalt, the same road that had led him there in the dark. Only now it looked different. The mist was gone, the air strangely still, yet the forest on both sides seemed to watch him. Every branch leaned inward. Every leaf held its breath. His shoes scraped against the road, each step echoing like a heartbeat. For the first time in years, he thought he could breathe again. The heaviness in his chest was gone, or maybe it had just moved somewhere else. When he finally reached his car, it was sitting exactly where he had left it. No scratches, no dirt, no sign that he had driven off the road the night before. He unlocked it, slid into the driver's seat, and let out a shaking laugh. "Jesus, I'm losing it," he muttered. He stopped. The passenger seat. There was something on it. A small, dirt-stained ribbon. Pink, frayed at the ends. Tom stared at it for a long time. It was the same ribbon Ellie had worn in her hair. He remembered it clearly now. How she used to tie it too tight, how she'd ask him to fix it. He'd teased her once that it made her look like a cartoon character. He reached out slowly and picked it up. The dirt crumbled between his fingers, but the ribbon itself was soft. Real. The world outside the windshield looked ordinary, just trees, light, and road. But inside the car, everything felt suspended, unreal. Tom whispered, "Ellie?" Nothing. Only the faint ticking of the cooling engine. He set the ribbon on the dashboard and started the car. The engine rumbled, the radio flickered on, static, then silence. He drove in silence for several minutes, his eyes locked on the winding road ahead. But as he reached the first curve, something caught his attention in the rearview mirror. A small figure, standing on the edge of the road. Tom hit the brakes. The car jolted to a stop. His heart thundered in his chest as he turned to look out the rear window. There was no one there. He rubbed his eyes, exhaled, and laughed weakly. I need sleep. I just need sleep. He pressed the gas again. The car rolled forward. Trees blurred past, light cutting through the branches. But then the radio came alive. A faint, crackling hum, like an old station trying to find a signal. Then a soft voice, barely audible beneath the static. Tom. He froze. The wheel jerked. No. No, no, no. Tom, the voice said again, clearer this time, small and distant, as if carried from miles away. You promised you wouldn't forget. He slammed the radio off. Silence. For a few long seconds, all he could hear was his own ragged breathing. Then, faintly, just at the edge of his hearing, came a child's laugh. Not loud. Not playful. Just enough to freeze his blood. He gripped the wheel tighter, staring straight ahead. You're not real, he whispered. You're not. Something moved in his peripheral vision. He glanced at the passenger side mirror. A reflection. The shape of a girl sitting beside him, her hands folded neatly in her lap, staring out the window. Her skin pale as milk. Her head tilted ever so slightly toward him. Tom didn't look. Didn't dare. He kept his eyes on the road as tears filled them. His lips trembled as he whispered, I'm sorry. The road ahead shimmered in the sunlight, twisting and curling toward the horizon. The trees thinned, the open countryside beyond glowing faintly gold. And just as he began to believe he might escape this, might truly move on, a faint, almost sweet voice filled the car again. Where are we going, Tommy? He didn't answer. He just drove. Faster. The ribbon on the dashboard fluttered once in the breeze from the vent, then slowly rose, as though lifted by invisible fingers. Tom's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel, the hum of the tires drowning out everything else. He didn't look back, not even when he heard the quiet sound of a girl giggling beside him, her voice fading into the static of the radio. The next day, Willow Creek woke under a leaden sky. The candy bowls were empty, and the streets were littered with confetti and crushed pumpkins. The last echo of Halloween still clung to the air, a faint sweetness mixed with the scent of rot. But everyone was talking about what had happened to Mr. Holloway. His shop stood dark and locked, its window display untouched since the night before. By noon, 2 police cars idled in front of it. The officers went inside, breaking the old lock. They found the candy shelves toppled, the sugar scattered like sand across the floor. The backroom door was ajar. And behind it, the walls were covered in what looked like melted sugar that had hardened again, sculpted faces, dozens of them, frozen mid-scream. No one could explain it. The officers searched every corner, but Mr. Holloway was gone. Meanwhile, Emma sat at home, pale and trembling. She hadn't slept. She still tasted the caramel on her tongue, still saw the boy's hollow eyes every time she blinked. Her parents thought she was just shaken from the Halloween scare, but she knew better. She could feel something in her pocket, that same piece of candy, still warm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. That evening, a knock echoed at the door. Slow, deliberate. Her father opened it to find nothing but a small brown paper bag on the doorstep. Inside was a single note, written in sticky brown ink. Every town deserves a treat. Emma's scream cut through the quiet street, and the lights in Willow Creek flickered once more, just as a new candy shop sign began to glow faintly at the edge of town. Holloway's Sweet Revenge, coming soon. The following year, people said Halloween felt different in Willow Creek. The candy tasted richer. The children laughed louder. And at midnight, if you looked closely, you might see a tall man in a candy-striped coat standing beneath the streetlights, watching, smiling, waiting for someone to take the first bite. And in every wrapper that fluttered through the cold wind, you could still read the faded letters. Made with a little piece of you. In the years that followed, Willow Creek changed. Tourists began visiting the sleepy town every October, drawn by the legend of Holloway's candy shop. Local stores sold t-shirts with slogans like "Sweet to the last bite" and "Taste the curse." Teenagers dared each other to sneak into the abandoned shop at night, though none ever made it past the front door. Those who tried said they heard faint music playing inside, the sound of an old carnival tune, and a soft voice whispering, "Don't forget to share your treats." By 2010, similar reports began appearing in nearby states. A mysterious candy shop would open for one night on Halloween, its windows fogged, its shelves piled high with sweets wrapped in plain brown paper. People who tasted them said they were the best candies they'd ever eaten, soft, rich, and strangely warm. But within a week, someone in the town would vanish. A child here, a traveler there. Always one. And each time, the shop would close the next morning, disappearing without a trace. Investigators tried to link the disappearances. The name Holloway surfaced again and again, though no records of such a confectioner existed. Urban legends grew. Some claimed he was an alchemist who sold his soul for the perfect recipe. Others said he'd been a candy maker executed in 1890 for poisoning a town. Whatever the truth, one detail never changed. Every sweet shop appeared on Halloween night, and every time, a single message was found carved into a wall, a window, or a candy wrapper. Every treat has a price. Today, parents in small American towns still tell their children the story before trick-or-treating. They say if someone offers you candy from a brown paper bag, especially if it feels warm, you must never take it, no matter how sweet it smells. And if you see a tall man in a striped coat standing under a streetlight at midnight, you must not meet his eyes. Because Holloway still walks among them, waiting, smiling, and somewhere his shop is already opening its doors again. The story of Holloway's candy shop has become more than just a ghost tale. It lingers, like the aftertaste of sugar and smoke, impossible to wash away. Each year, the legend finds new life online. People post grainy photos of mysterious candy wrappers found in their mailboxes, share eerie recordings of faint carnival music heard on quiet Halloween nights, or upload videos of strange, striped shadows flickering across their porches. Skeptics call it hysteria or viral folklore, a modern myth that keeps Halloween thrilling. But those who've seen the shop themselves speak differently. Their voices always tremble, eyes distant, as though remembering a dream they wish they could forget. They describe the same things: the flicker of orange lights in the fog, the scent of caramel and burnt sugar, and the faint laughter of children that turns hollow at the edges. Some say Holloway is no ghost at all, but something older, a spirit of Halloween itself, feeding on fear and greed, growing stronger each time someone breaks the sacred rule: never take more than your share. Others believe the shop reappears where grief is strongest, drawn to the hunger of lonely hearts wishing to relive the sweetness of childhood. So when the jack-o'-lanterns dim and the streets fall silent, remember this: legends survive because we keep them alive. Each whisper, each retelling, keeps Holloway's shop glowing faintly in the dark, waiting for the next soul who can't resist just one more taste. And if you ever wake at midnight to the sound of faint music, a slow, because Halloween has many faces, and one of them still smiles behind the counter of a shop that shouldn't exist, lilting melody that smells of sugar, don't open your door. Don't follow the tune.